Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
Now get the guns, the drugs from my generation. I'll take the fall, the state, and across the nation. And it's a sin, the guns, the fake, the fraud, the messing with me. Come on, come on, come on, let's get it on.
All right, come on in, sit down, plug in your headphones, kick up your feet. It's Tuesday night. Let's talk some wrestling, shall we? My name is Brandi, also known as Ryan Taylor Girl. I am freezing in the frigid north of Alaska because it's finally winter here. And it's been about 35, 40 degrees with the wind chill. So, of course, I'm wearing short pants because I have no concept of how to dress for the weather in the morning because I'm not awake yet. But here I am anyway.
And you are with your co-host, who is me, Robbie S., once again. And I am knee-deep in the No Shave November craze, a movement to raise awareness for prostate and testicular cancer. And in the process, I have been developing a bit of facial hair.
Yes, and by a bit, he means it's almost past the stubble stage. And by the way, it's only 2 days worth of growth so far. So needless to say, he's already excelling just like in everything else.
Oh, you make me blush. Thank goodness this is a podcast.
Yes, this is true. So you just have to pretend that you get to see him blush. I'll tell you about it if you want to hear about it. Because this week we're talking about writing. Both of us happen to be writing aficionados, if you will. And before we get into that, we'll go ahead and do our little injury roundup update. Nikki Bella is going to miss the upcoming European tour that everybody is leaving for, I think, either tonight or tomorrow, depending on where they're located in the country, for the annual jaunt over across the pond. She has some sort of neck injury. So Brie is on the tour, but Nikki is not. Of course, John Cena is not on this tour because he's taking time off.
Yes, and not only is it a neck injury, but it seems like Nikki's been having this nagging hip injury as well that she's been working with. So hopefully she gets some time off to heal up and get back into a better state of being. It's the main reason why I think she wasn't in that Fatal 4-Way match on Raw this past Monday.
I believe so. I don't think any official reason has been given yet, but WWE's been a little slow on announcing these whole injury things because they just officially announced Randy Orton's shoulder injury like earlier this week. So they're a little slow.
Yeah, he'll be out for quite some time.
They have to come up with a good reason.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately they're less about actual reporting and journalism on WWE.com as they are as maintaining their crap-ass storylines, which we'll get into that. And also in other upsetting news, besides Randy Orton being out with his hypermobile shoulders, I heard a rumor. It was on a Ring Rat blog, so I have no idea how truthful this rumor is, but his shoulder went out and he was taking out the trash.
Yeah, isn't it funny how wrestling injuries work sometimes? You expect Seth Rollins to like break his leg coming off a ladder. He's fine. But you can have Rusev just step off the apron and he breaks his foot. So it's a really weird business where injuries happen when you least expect them to.
And apparently when you're taking out the trash.
And when you're taking out the trash. Only Randy Orton.
Well, he does have the hypermobile shoulders. And so it's really, if you move the wrong way, pop, there you go. So hopefully he'll return with a speedy recovery. Kota Ibushi of New Japan Pro Wrestling fame also has been sidelined with an injury recently. He has a herniated cervical disc, which is a herniated disc in the upper part of your neck because, of course, the spine is divided into 3 portions. The cervical, the lumbar, and the other one, the last one. I don't remember what that one is.
Yeah, we're not the science enthusiasts, but DDT talked about his injury. DDT is the other promotion Kota Ibushi works with. He has joint contracts with both that promotion and New Japan. DDT said that he would be out of action, quote unquote, a long time, meaning it's indefinite. We don't really know the return date. But there is some good news to this because it's reported that New Japan Pro Wrestling will renew his contract, so he'll stay on.
Yay! I'm a big Kota Ibushi fan, so yay.
Yeah, and it blew your mind. It blew my mind too when we learned that he's 33 years old.
He's
I thought
33. He looks like he's like 21.
Yeah, I thought he was closer to Okada's age than Nakamura's, but I guess there we are.
Yes, it's the facial features. He has the same problem that I do, except for he looks old enough to be out of school. Everyone always asks me why I'm not in high school.
Well, it's because you have a very youthful way about you.
I have a very round face, so I have the chubby cheeks and the short, awkward, what am I doing here look.
See, now you're putting yourself down. You blew up my ego. Now you're putting yourself down. This will not do on the Hold 1005. And you have to know, lady, that you are more than okay. Much more than okay.
Okay.
Fucking A. I try to give
So
you
why
a
don't we get
compliment.
off of us being fluffy and cute, and we'll get to the wrestling, because that's what we're really here to talk about. Now, wrestling is obviously the major part, and performing is 3/4 of the important stuff that happens. And the other fourth is half booking and half storyline and then half writing. And I happen to subscribe to the theory of government, which means authority, as in management, is that it is best that he who governs best governs least. So I don't like it when management has their fingers all up in every single little nook and cranny, Vince McMahon and your old anal ass retentive self.
Which is the big problem with WWE right now because everything, right down to the announcing, is micromanaged to the point where nothing organic gets the chance to show itself. And I think that's a big problem because you don't get those Austin 316 style moments or hell, even the CM Punk pipe bomb a few years back.
No, you don't. It stifles creativity. And when you're trying to create both an entertainment product and a sports product, where the sports product is kind of taken care of, you would think, with professionals at this caliber, it stifles the creativity, and it stifles what you're able to push your product to new heights. And I think that's why a lot of the storylines are stalling out, because as soon as they don't get the reaction they wanted or they hoped for, they change everything, and then they don't give a linear progression or a correct thought flowing in a way that it makes sense, because all we're telling is a story, folks. It has a beginning and a middle and an end, and there has to be ways to get there, and they just kind of skip the exit and jump right over onto the next freeway.
Yeah, either storylines just end abruptly or they go on for much longer than they have to. I think the biggest example, and we've covered this a number of times before. If we have to do it again, I'm probably gonna have a stroke or something. Is that love triangle square thing regarding Dolph Ziggler, Rusev, Lana, Summer Rae? That storyline had no right to go on as long as it did. Absolutely no right.
No. And then the way they ended it kind of just was so awful. It summed up the entire storyline in a nutshell with, oh, TMZ broke the story that Lana and Rusev are engaged in real life. Derp! That's the end.
Yeah, maybe we should thank TMZ, which is insane coming from me, somebody who's very critical of journalistic outlets, and I use that term loosely, like TMZ, to thank them for that because it put the kibosh on that whole storyline. So
Yes, we've used the term
yeah.
journalism loose. Gawker,
hmm
uh, sites like that who
Oh
are all
God,
about sensationalism and
don't even get me started on
gossip,
Gawker. Don't even get me started on
gossip,
Gawker.
if you will.
Probably a mini stroke if we have to go back into that.
No, we'll skip right over that, because I don't want to have to remember how to do CPR right now, because I'm trying to thread a needle.
Yeah, don't hurt yourself though.
I'm trying. It's just that a beading needle is not like a regular sewing needle, and I like to do little crafty projects. And I have bad eyesight. I only see out of one eye, so trying to thread a needle is hard.
Cold
And it's also
1005 wrestling discussion and crafts knowledge.
crafting tips, exactly. It's impossible for me to sit and do one thing at a time. I have to do more than one thing at a time. My brain doesn't work if I have to concentrate on one thing.
Which is weird to think about because you still do well when you multitask, whereas a lot of people tend to lose focus.
This is true. So, anyway, back to the writing. It's basically we want something where there's not too much. We're not going to try and script everything down to the second or try and basically write everything for you, which is a lot of the promos don't get over because you're handing somebody a script. And we're not actors, they're
No.
professional wrestlers or sports entertainers, whatever you want to call them.
And it's fine to have lines for people if they're trained to be actors or trained to be trained to be in theater or on the silver screen, but not when you're talking about professional sports. And I'm going to say that pro wrestling is a sport, meaning that there are athletes involved, not so much, actors and actresses.
Exactly. And I'm fine with giving certain lines you want to get across, or a story that you want to hit, or bullet points, or whatever. But when you're handing somebody a script cold and say, we're going live in 3 hours, this is what you have to say, and once more with feeling for all my George Lucas fans,
Mhm.
it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. And then you put them in front of 10,000, 12,000 people with another couple million watching at home on live television and the internet already hashtagging saying how horrible you are at reading. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. I was watching the latest Breaking Ground episode on the network, and one of the things that they covered was the promo classes for the new recruits. And I was watching this going, why is this class necessary? They're not gonna be responsible for creating their own characters. Everything's gonna be handed to them by writers and bookers. They're not gonna be able to memorize anything. They don't have to create their own thing.
No, it's good that they have it, but
Hmm.
then when they get called up to the main roster, everything that they've been taught and everything that they've been working on is then taken away from them and handled
Yeah.
by agents and writers and Vince McMahon and Kevin Dunn, who are not the people that are going to be out there having to, you know, sell it.
Exactly. It's like learning how to parallel park when you're learning how to drive. You're going to use that skill once, twice, but after that, it kind of just fades from your memory.
But let's not talk about parallel parking. That's a nightmare.
Exactly. Besides, we're not here to give you parking tips or craft tips. We're here to talk about wrestling.
That we are. And I read an article today. One of my
Hmm.
favorite blogs on Tumblr that's wrestling related is called Shitloads of Wrestling. And it was an article by Keith Elliott Greenberg, who is a New York Times
Hmm.
renowned best-selling author. He's written 60 books. A lot of them are wrestling related. He co-authored Ric Flair's book, Classy Freddie Blassie, Superstar Billy Graham. He co-authored the new Iron Sheik autobiography that will be coming out this year. The man knows his wrestling, and he wrote about the last days, weeks leading up to the death of Randy Macho Man Savage. And it was really interesting because he got the majority of his information from the sources that are left as Maddie texts Robbie,
Hmm.
um, being his widow and his mother and his brother. And we don't see a lot of that in a lot of wrestling journalism these days.
No, it just seems like it's more or less going off of what the quote unquote dirt sheets have to say. Other times it's very snarky blogs that more or less have zero value. And I commend people like Greenberg who dig deeper, who ask questions, who get in touch with certain people in order to make their work better. Because once again, it goes back to journalism, which is almost a lost art when you talk about pro wrestling or hell, any industry for that matter.
That it is, unfortunately. Keith actually worked for the WWE for I think it was almost 20 years
Hmm.
in terms of writing. I believe he did the first WrestleMania book and that came out around WrestleMania 2000 era. But now he's kind of doing his own thing, which is cool. I have to read a couple of his books, but it was really nice to see somebody write an article
Mhm.
and not cite other news sites as their major source of information.
It is concerning, but I am very glad that people like Greenberg have the ability to dig a little deeper, use that journalistic sensibility.
They do, and there is a difference between writing an article that is based on facts
Hmm.
and information from a source, doing your research, and a commentary piece, which people also do. Both of us tend to do more commentary style pieces in which we input our own opinion and our own insight
But even
into.
but even with those commentary pieces, there's still certain rules that you have to follow. There's still certain unspoken guidelines that'll help you along the way, and it'll make you a better writer, and it'll make people more inclined to read what you have to put forth.
That they do. And if you'd like to be interested in anything that we have written, all of our articles are available on 87sportsfans.com. More so Robbie's than mine, because I've really fallen off the wagon in terms of writing these days.
This
But
this past Sunday,
it is.
this past Sunday, I posted an NJPW Spotlight article featuring Tetsuya Naito, and I learned a lot about that wrestler that when I first started watching New Japan, I couldn't have cared less about. So it was a learning experience for me. Hopefully you guys enjoy it if you're into New Japan.
Hopefully. And we do try and vary up what we cover, who we cover. And if you would like to be interested in writing for 87 Sports Fans, you can contact our wonderful producer, Jack of all trades, master of some, Keith here. And his contact information is available on our website. So we'll go ahead and take a break right now. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes. You're listening to the Whole 1005 podcast only on LateNightSportsRadio.com.
Lost or found love, lying by your side.
Take another second to keep breathing in a moment before it's gone. You never know when love is lost until you find just what it costs to be wrong. Think of me passing by, you think you see me coming. I wonder if you pull me in, kiss me just one time again. Cause in the final hours of night, do you remember? Lost or found, love lying by your side. Coming and the nights will keep on going till they're tired, falling fast asleep and as they dream of ghosts of beats filled with desire. The trance of life is all around, a chance to take is always found. Oh, writing on the lullabies on the lonely living life. Oh, do you remember? Lost or found, love lying by
Looking at the history doesn't seem to give any clue. Just when I think I understand it all, you seem to unravel some more. Ooh, I never known nobody like you. Ooh, now I know you're not an enigma. Yeah, you keep me guessing, I'm confessing now, well, baby, it's true. I never know nobody like you. Baby, you're an enigma. Baby, you're a riddle, I'm caught up in the middle of you. I'm trying to think bigger, but I can't seem to figure it through. I wanna make it better, but now I'm scared of looking a fool. Oh, baby, no, I've never been very good at playing it cool. Just when I think I understand it all, I find I know nothing at all. I never known nobody like you. Now I know you're an enigma. Yeah, you keep me guessing, I'm confessing now, well, baby, it's true. I never know nobody like you. Baby, you're an enigma. Baby, you're an enigma. Yeah, you keep me guessing, I'm confessing now, baby, it's true. I never know nobody like you. Baby, you're an enigma. Baby, you're an enigma. Baby, you're an enigma. Yeah, you keep me guessing, I'm confessing now, baby, it's true. I never know nobody like you.
Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
All right, welcome back to the Hold 1005 podcast. We are brought to you, of course, only on Late Night Sports Radio. And we've been talking about writing when it comes to wrestling and its importance. And when it goes wrong, it's wrong. And when it's right, it's right. So we thought in this half we would talk about when they got it right, when they're not trying so hard and things can happen organically. And it's a storyline or a story in general that is memorable throughout the time, the annals of professional wrestling. So when I say memorable storylines where they got it right, what's the first one that comes to your mind, Robbie?
First memorable storyline that comes to my mind, I'd have to look back to the late 90s when the NWO was running wild, and the one person to step up and confront them was Sting, the silent warrior with the baseball bat in hand, and strength of many men.
Strength of many men, because everybody who has ever watched WCW, which unless they were just weird, loved Sting. Sting was the synonymous with WCW ever since he joined the company.
And what I loved
And
about that storyline, more than anything else, I think, was how it was built up over a year. You don't normally get those in this day and age when I think immediate satisfaction is so rampant. Back then, WCW made the fans wait to see Sting come into the ring and wrestle Hollywood Hulk Hogan. And even though that particular match at Starrcade was not the greatest for many reasons, the build towards that was tremendous, and I give the powers that be a lot of credit for that.
indeed, and while the match itself, the caliber was not great, the payoff of
Mhm.
finally getting it to happen was it was awesome. It was definitely one of my favorite Starcades in terms of
Mhm.
just story payoff of I've been waiting, I've been chomping, I've been seeing him in the rafters, and I've been hearing Hogan run his mouth, and I've wanted this. And I want to talk about Sting going into that Crow persona because
Yeah.
before then he was wearing bright colors, he was slapping hands with fans, he was very high energy, bleach blonde bomber man. And when they kept talking about how there's going to be another member of the NWO, and the NWO planted the seeds in Lex Luger and and Macho Man Randy Savage's head that it was Sting. And then they got someone who dressed up like Sting with the face paint and the jacket. And they were so convinced, and they didn't believe Sting. Even the fans didn't believe Sting.
Hmm.
And it really is just like, you know what? The only one I can rely on is me. And he came in the same night they accused him, and they had the Sting look-alike out in the parking lot in the jacket and the face paint. He came in to it was a double cage. It was, I'm trying to think of what the stipulation was, but there was two rings, and the cage was around both of the rings. And he came in and he literally laid every single member of the NWO out by himself. And then he left because he's like, you know what? You didn't believe me. You didn't trust me. And if you had just believed me and trusted in me, we would have won because I just took out the entire NWO myself.
Right, and it made Sting a much more sympathetic character, which it's almost hard to believe because, like you said, Sting was that face of WCW, the franchise. He shouldn't be as sympathetic as he was, but that storyline helped to create that environment where this fan favorite was not receiving the support he needed, not just from the wrestlers, but from the fans, and it resulted in him shedding the colors and becoming a silent protagonist.
Exactly. I don't think he spoke for like almost 2 years.
No, no. But I also like the storylines that come about when I feel like they're needed the most. The biggest example is the CM Punk pipe bomb promo from a few years back. And I believe this to be one of the best promos simply because it came at a time when WWE needed it. Think back to that time. Think back to WWE during that year or so when it felt very stagnant. John Cena was at the top of the food chain. There was really no one else who could match him in terms of star power. It was John Cena and Randy Orton more often than not being at the top of the card. So when CM Punk sat on that stage and cut this scathing promo on different wrestlers, the company's structure, how things are run, even though it was found out later that it was a worked shoot, quote, we believed it. We bought into it hook, line, and sinker, to take a line from Vince Russo. I'm sorry, but at the same time, we bought into it, and it made for one of the most compelling storylines in recent memory.
It was, and even though it was a worked shoot, and that means, just in case you're not up on all of your lingo and are looking for your decoder ring,
Hmm.
that just means it's styled to be like, oh, he's just mouthing off, but they've given him pointers or ideas of where to go, and they knew it was coming. I don't know if they knew how badly he was going to ream them.
No, I think they just sort of gave him the bullet points and just they if they didn't know that CM Punk was going to go to those extremes, they have not been focusing on that guy nearly as much as they should have been.
Exactly. And CM Punk has always been a really great promo guy. You don't have to give him a lot of direction. And that's when writing goes right. You just got to give him the bullet points, what you want him to cover, and then you let them use their personality and their character, their rapport with the crowd and the people, and just watch them eat it up, eat it out of his hand. Hey, Colt Cabana, how you doing? It's magic, and that's when writing goes right.
Yeah,
You
and
don't need to
sometimes,
micromanage.
yes, and you can also argue that the best storylines come about when the fans when the fans have influence over it. I think back to the Daniel Bryan run leading up to WrestleMania 30, and how, it was Daniel Bryan, this scrappy underdog who, by all accounts, should not have made it, combating the powers that be, the authority. Just this, this contrast that made for the perfect underdog story. And what made it that much more interesting was that Daniel Bryan was not supposed to main event that show. It was not supposed to be that way. It was supposed to be Randy Orton versus Batista for the world title, which, let's be honest, would not have been that great of a main event.
No, it wouldn't have been as strong. And it's not just about the fans hijacking the show, quote unquote, because they use that terminology a lot. It's expressing who they feel and showing their allegiance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that person being able to shoulder that responsibility, just like with CM Punk. I mean, Daniel
Yeah.
didn't do it so much on the microphone as he did in the ring because he's not more of a talker, he's more of a doer.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're more of a talker, you have to use your platform like a Joey Styles when he quote unquote quit on Raw with his worked shoot, when Paul Heyman quote unquote quit as a SmackDown ring announcer back in 2001, as Maddie pointed out. You have to be able to use your platform and use somebody whose voice they're going to trust. And then
That's
they'll
true.
just eat it up. And they
And
did.
they did. And it's funny because some of the storylines and some of the angles that work when you least expect them. I think uh, there was that NXT panel on the network, and Triple H made a comment to the effect of, some of the things that I don't expect to go over. He cited Blue Pants as an example, like why are people cheering for this girl? I don't get it. I don't get the appeal of Blue Pants, but this is what the fans want. Let's go in this direction. And I think that's the best
Mm-hmm.
way to do it, because I think if you try to fight back against those forces, if you fight back against upcoming trends, you're going to get lost in the shuffle. You have to sort of move with the waves.
Exactly. You can put something out and you think it's going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's going to be another Rock versus Austin. It's going to be another Austin 316 moment. It's going to be
Mhm.
another something that's memorable, but it goes over like a fart in church. It doesn't really work. And and then somebody like Blue Pants comes along, and she was only there to job out to Carmella
Yeah,
essentially,
it has been
but
talent,
the
really.
fans uh, latched onto her because of her spunky personality, and she turned what was just a little bit role that was probably intended just to be the one night, and she's got her own T-shirt on WWE Shop, and she's not signed to the
Yeah,
company.
exactly. And I think NXT is a great example of storylines going over when you let the fans have control. Instead of Bo Dallas being the first NXT champion, for example, it was Seth Rollins. Bo Dallas was not, he was not doing it. He was not cutting the mustard as a fan favorite. But someone like Seth Rollins, who back then was a little more rebellious, he had that metalhead persona, fans gravitated towards that. And once again, it's this idea of going with the waves. The fans create it, And, it's in your best interest to go with it because you're going to make more money in the long run.
Exactly. And I don't think NXT would be as big as it is now
Mhm.
if Triple H wasn't the one calling the shots, and he has got the skill to sit back and he can see the motion of the ocean, if it were, and he can see how things are working. And they'd be totally opposite of what he thinks is going to work, but he sees it working. So he goes that direction and he builds with it, as opposed to on the main roster where they just try and force the issue of this is how it's supposed to be because we said so.
Yeah, and I do think that there are some flashes of brilliance when it comes to the main roster. Uh, Great example of that would be the New Day and their
Mm-hmm.
metamorphosis over just during this year alone. They went from being booed out of Philly to being the hottest act on Raw, and most of that comes to the fact that creative let the New Day showcase their personalities. Instead of being these stereotypical black preachers, they became just this band of misfits that you know that engages in random humor. Whether it's toying with the fans or coming out playing the trombone.
Exactly. It's taking something that they want to try and force on you and then turning it back around into something that you're back in control of. And so, even though they're trying to micromanage and trying to force the issue, there will be instances like with the New Day where something will get over or something goes right because obviously you can't halt flashes
Hmm.
of lightning and brilliance and creativity. Like it just happens. Like with Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens getting over as well as he did on the main roster. That was all on Kevin Owens
Yeah,
and the
because
people.
exactly. And I think the biggest thing to consider when creating a storyline, any wrestling storyline for that matter, is to respect your audience. Don't talk down to them, but don't make things overly complicated. I think a good example would be the Bayley versus Sasha Banks feud that we've seen during the past number of months, which produced two killer matches, match of the year candidates, I'd say. It was just a story of a overly confident champion, perhaps, against a plucky babyface who proved herself over the course of time that she was more than just this innocent little girl who, was the little engine that could, but she can succeed. And it had nothing to do with, petty jealousy or feuding over some guy. It was all about wrestling. It was about respect. It was about growth. And you don't have to tell a whole lot. You don't need 20-minute promos. Just be straightforward.
Exactly. It was something that we can all identify with, and they will be having a third match that will be taking place at NXT London, NXT Takeover in London in December, and will surely steal the show if they're not careful. Again,
It's gonna be a killer trilogy.
it will be, and it'll be what we will talk about in time as we talk about Trish and Lita. That's going to be one of the feuds that we're going to go back and say that was a kick-ass feud. Not because they were fighting because, oh, I'm
Mhm.
popular and like she's not, or because they're fighting over
Yeah,
some dude. It's pure athletic competition and deciding who's better. And what's better in athletics than to put a strap of gold on the line? And that's exactly what it's about.
exactly. And if you take gender out of the whole thing, people don't like Trish and Lita because they're women. It's because they were good, good wrestlers. And that's all you need. You just need good talent in there that understands what they have to do, what their roles are, put them out there, and just let them have at it.
Let them have at it. Let things happen naturally. Don't try and overforce and over micromanage and overwrite, and be attentive to your audience and don't
Yeah.
insult them.
Treat them with
Make them involved, and
respect because they'll treat you with respect in return.
exactly, they'll be paying your paycheck. And when all of that goes right, you have these magic moments that we like to talk about and we make video packages about. And that's why we love wrestling. That's why we love it. That's why we're here.
And
And I think
it's going to be why we'll keep watching wrestling until maybe the day we die.
more than likely, my great grandparents got me into wrestling, and they watched wrestling until they weren't here anymore. My great grandpa was 93, and we were watching wrestling on television at the long-term care facility.
Isn't it amazing how wrestling just grabs people that way?
Yes, it is. And I think on that note, we'll say adieu for now.
Adieu.
But join us here next week on the Hold 1005 podcast only on Late Night Sports Radio.
Good night.